us would have heard of the game Among Us. If you haven't, it's basically a game where you identify, you'll be in a group of people and you identify the imposter of among you, who is among you, but we don't need to get into that. So basically now what we have, there will be 4 statements on the screen. I want you to take a guess, maybe in the chat box, maybe just yell out your answer, anything works, on which one of these statements seems particularly suspicious or sus, all right? And we'll show you the answer once we get a broad consensus on what everyone agrees on. So maybe we can go to the first slide, Ishita, please. Right, so which is the imposter? And really get into it if you can. First statement you have are sanitary pads are made up of nearly 90% plastic. That's a heavy statement. 90% plastic is a lot of plastic for one pad. We're talking about one pad over here, not sanitary pads in general. Second statement is that one pad takes anywhere from 500 to 800 years to decompose. When? Long period of time. Okay? So think about this really carefully. Third is menstruation is a taboo and something to be ashamed about. It seems rather obvious, but is it? The fourth is, do menstrual cups break your hymen? The statement is menstrual cups do not break your hymen, but do you agree with that? All right. Those are your 4 statements. One of them is incorrect. That means one of them is suspicious and one of them is the sus. Right. So what does everyone think? What's the general consensus? 3?
The third one.
Oh, okay. So we have 3 people. 3, okay. You sure? I don't know. 4th sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
Shreya, what do you say?
Yeah, 4 sounds pretty good to me as
4
well. I
sounds
think
good,
you might
right?
need to, reevaluate your answer.
Maybe we're wrong. We're probably wrong. Everyone's saying 3. Oh, all right. Ishita, what's the answer? You guys are right. 3 is the answer. Menstruation is not a taboo. This is obvious. Sanitary pads. So, but just to explain the other statements and just to put into perspective what we will be talking about later in the presentation, one sanitary pad is 90% plastic. And this one pad does take anywhere from 500 to 800 years to decompose. Just imagine, like, you can't imagine the amount of time that is. We'll all be dead and gone. And menstrual cups do not break your hymen. This is actually a very common myth that you will lose your virginity if you use a menstrual cup. That is not true. It's a pervasive myth, one that we should not take into account. So you guys are right. Third is sus. And then we can move on to the second slide. That I think Ishita will take over.
Yep. So, for your second question, which of these is sus? Your 4 options are: 1. A pad is the equivalent of a single plastic bag. 2. Sustainable period products exist. 3. Plastic from menstrual waste contributes up to 113,000 tons of plastic in all landfills. Or 4. Exposed menstrual waste can cause HIV and hepatitis B.
See, these ones are tricky. The first one was pretty easy when you think about it.
I mean, all of them seem true enough to me.
4. Someone saying 4. No, Muhammad is saying 4. Oh, you guys are saying 4. No one Googles. Okay, no Googling.
They're not cheating.
3. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting answers.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, everyone. Take a wild guess. 1.
1.
Okay. 1. 1. Okay. Okay. Okay, a lot of people are saying 1 now. I don't know if that's peer pressure or if you genuinely think the answer is 1. Okay, 4. We have a 4. Okay, 10 more seconds and then we'll decide on one. Okay, 4. 4. Right. I think it's, I wouldn't know what to think either. I know the answer, so it's harder to give my genuine opinion. Okay, a lot of 4. So we'll go with 4.
Okay, so lock kiya jaye. Sorry, I'm just living out my KBC things. The answer is
1. You guys.
Now-
Should I explain to us the statements?
Yep. So yeah, one plastic bag seems like a huge amount for one pad. But it gets worse. one pad is equivalent to 4 plastic bags. So that's that. And then the second option, we all know sustainable period products do exist. A lot of them, there's variety. Then the third one is that there's a lot of waste in our landfills contributed by menstrual waste. And fourth one is also true enough that when menstrual waste is left outside for a long time, and if you come in contact with it, directly in contact with it, skin to skin, then there are chances of you getting HIV or hepatitis B.
Right.
The next
So
question.
let's, yeah.
That was grim.
Right. So we have the next question. You have to guess who the imposter is. First option, menstrual cups are economical. Second one, the improper disposal of menstrual waste does not affect the environment. Third one, sanitation workers face adverse conditions while disposing of menstrual waste. And the last one, sustainable menstruation is a topic of global importance. Now, guys, answers.
Not gonna lie, this one is tripping me up too.
Yeah.
Well, then the broad
Okay.
consensus is that you are idiots because everyone seems to be on the right track.
Okay, let's not insult me here.
No, okay.
Right. So most of you guys are saying two, so I guess we'll go with two. And you guys are right. You guys seem to be right all the time. So the first option, menstrual cups are economical. Obviously, they are because they are a one-time investment, and they can last up to 5 to 10 years, and there are no drawbacks. So you're doing the environment a favor as well as your pocket. So it's right, obviously. The second one, the improper disposal of menstrual waste does not affect the environment. It does. It absolutely does. Um, it Plastic obviously bad for the environment. We all know that. We've been learning that since we were kids. So that was a pretty obvious answer. Third one, sanitation workers face adverse conditions while disposing of menstrual waste. As we saw in the last question, being in direct contact with exposed menstrual waste can cause hepatitis, and so pretty obvious again. Fourth one, sustainable menstruation is a topic of global importance, and that's why we're here today, because it is extremely important to have a conversation about this.
Great, fantastic. So I think we can get into the actual presentation. Set the tone. We've given you a brief idea about what we'll be talking about today. So let's get into the real deal. And that is the concept of sustainable menstruation. And now we've all heard about sustainability, the concept of sustainable development. That in itself is nothing new. But sustainable menstruation is more of a niche topic. Any guesses on what that is? Does anybody want to take a wild guess? No?
You guys can switch on your mics and say.
Right. So the question may be, okay, I'm probably eating some of my words up. But the question is, we know what sustainable means, we know what menstruation means. Can we put two of those together and come up with a definition for sustainable menstruation? Does it mean that your menstrual cycles comprise of green leafy vegetables? No. But what does sustainable menstruation in itself mean? Any guess? I mean,
I
it
don't
is
know if
like I
I'm
said.
allowed to answer because I've read about you guys so much, so I know what this is.
No, then you're not allowed to answer. No, no answers from Hidya. Okay, not blaming anyone, not pointing any fingers.
Hello,
That's
am I
not going.
audible?
Oh, yes, yes, you are.
Okay, so it means that nowadays we are using many sanitary pads. Many women are using these sanitary pads, and the problems they face in disposing these waste. So we have to find some sustainable methods for disposing it. So we are going to talk about those methods of ways to use the sustainable menstruation methods.
Fantastic. That was right. That hit right on the mark actually. And there are a bunch of everyone in the comments are are correct as well. That is exactly what sustainable menstruation means, and it means pertaining to the use of products like menstrual cups and cloth pads to reduce the amount of non-biodegradable waste produced during menstruation. You're absolutely right. Now, the next question is, do we know what non-biodegradable waste that we are producing during menstruation? You answered that as well. All the plastic that we have in our pads, that sort of thing. So, Ishita, maybe we can move on to the next slide. Right. So, we did a survey actually when we were starting out. And according to the results of the survey we did, first thing that we picked up on was that the vast majority of menstruators used pads, and that on average they used about 3 pads a day. This is not a surprising statistic. It actually feeds into the pre-existing notion that we have that the vast majority of Indian menstruators use pads. So what? To kya hua? But as we mentioned in the game that we were playing before, one pad is made up of nearly 90% plastic, not nearly, 90% plastic. And that is the equivalent of 4 plastic bags. And that this one pad takes anywhere from 500 to 800 years to decompose. Now, I don't need to say this, but there are millions of menstruators in our country alone. There are 355 million menstruators in India, according to statistics. So many more on the global stage. Do the math. Bigger and bigger and bigger. The amount of plastic that we are producing during our menstrual cycles is unfathomable. It's unprecedented. And this is where the concept of sustainable menstruation comes in. It aims to cut down the amount of plastic that we are producing as average menstruators and actually encourage these menstruators to, as you mentioned, Kanwal, more sustainable period products, menstrual cups, cloth pads, that sort of thing. So that is the definition of sustainable menstruation. Um, Next slide, please. Right. So again, now on a slightly unrelated note, we will be tying this into sustainable menstruation later. How many of you have had unpleasant experiences with disposed of menstrual waste? Maybe you found pads that have been tried to flush down the toilet or in the middle of the public road. I know that this has happened to me numerous times. Actually, I have a dog, and it just so happens that I have to walk this dog every day. And so one time we were walking, I was with my mom, and he was sniffing around this huge pile of garbage. And of course, I should be paying more attention. Suddenly, I noticed that he's about to pick something up. And I realized that it is a used pad, not something you want next to the mouths of your animals, or next to any person's mouth, just to clear that up. So, how many of you have had such experiences? I know that even if you're not a menstruator, this is something that is becoming increasingly common, unfortunately. So, what are your experiences? Anything in particular?
Same experience with the dog actually for me.
Really? Oh,
With my pet, yeah.
that's
It's
terrible.
horrible.
Yeah.
Cannot.
The horror.
Yeah, the horror. It's pure horror.
Actually, like you don't know who you're more mad at, your dog or the
Yeah.
person who's thrown their
Yeah.
pad in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
You settle for the latter.
And
Shreya,
it's
what
so
about?
difficult.
Yeah, it is actually like wow. You would expect it to be common sense that don't throw your pad in the middle of the road for my animal to find, for my pet to find, but for anyone to find, for the matter of fact. But people still do it. It's unfortunate. I know that this happens a lot at our school, which Shreya,
I was just
Yeah.
going to say that.
yeah,
Like almost, it's like a biannual occurrence. A prefect or a teacher called this out, go to the assembly hall, and they, scold us about it. And then it happens the next month.
yeah,
Yeah, because in our school, it has happened so many times that people flush their sanitary pads down the toilet, and the toilet clogs, and the janitors have to clean it up with their hands, and it's really not nice to let somebody else do that work for you. And the fact that both of you have had the same experience really puts into perspective how big of a problem this really is. So I see that it's not really an uncommon occurrence for all of us to go through something like this.
yeah, and that's like actually what our survey pointed out as well. No one's saying anything. Either you all are really lucky and you've never come across something like this. In that case, I envy you. But okay, so the survey we did. So you guys happen to be the lucky ones, but the survey we did showed us that this is not a limited problem. And what it showed us in particular was that 2 in 3 of our respondents told us that they'd had similar terrible experiences with used pads. A lot of them, we actually asked them to describe their experiences. There was one in particular who was a teacher at a school, and she, oh wait, all right, yeah, lots of used pads used to flow through the canal near us where we used to go for a swim. Good lord. Just, and we've just spoken about how you can actually be exposed to hepatitis B and HIV. So again, a terrible occurrence. As I was saying, one of the most memorable accounts that I remember in particular was one of a teacher, and she actually wrote down that there are so many times I have to talk to my students about flushing down their pads. Yeah, exactly as you are saying. So many of these pads are stuck down toilets, and as Shreya mentioned, it's demeaning to the people who are tasked with the responsibility of unclogging the toilet, which we'll also get into later. That's actually how we at the Red Lotus started. Coming back to the menstruation, thank you for sharing your accounts, but coming back to the presentation, 2 and 3 of our respondents told us that they had similar experiences. One teacher actually pointed out her own experience with having to talk to students about, actually don't flush your toilet, don't flush your pads down the toilet, just please don't do that. And according to a more credible source, the Menstrual Health Alliance of India, 13% of all menstrual waste is thrown in open spaces such as rivers, such as wells, lakes, and by the roadside. 10% is actually disposed of in toilets, which is what Kanwal mentioned. 9% is burned, not good for the environment, you're burning plastic. And 8% is buried, takes 500 years to decompose. Not cool. So, okay, these are about the pads that don't make it to waste segregation plants. That's a whole different issue. But what about the pads that do make it to waste segregation plants? Now, from our own experiences, the Red Lotus actually started because I visited a waste segregation plant, and I spoke to the sanitation workers over there. And one problem that they particularly, I don't even know why I was there. I think I went there for a school assignment. But I remember coming back and being struck by the sight of these 3 sanitation workers who, with their bare hands, were disposing of the pads from this mountain of garbage. And that's what they told us. We paid numerous visits back because that was just a sight that struck with us. We met with these sanitation workers who actually had to dispose of these hastily wrapped pads that menstruators in our locality, and we live in the naval base, that who had just haphazardly thrown away. Most people wrap their pads in a newspaper. These, where we live, people were not even bothering to do that, and they were just throwing it into the trash can. So by the time it reached the waste segregation plant, it had mixed in with all of the other waste, with all of the wet waste. And so what these sanitation workers were forced to do was that they were forced to sift through these mountains of garbage, of course, to separately dispose of the menstrual waste in a biomedical incinerator. Now, a biomedical incinerator is probably the best way you want to dispose of your menstrual waste. And the facility over here, the waste segregation plant at the naval base, did have a biomedical incinerator. It wasn't that they weren't equipped, it was just that people were not following the standard that was expected of them. And so, for the sanitation workers themselves, it is degrading, it is demeaning. As Shreya mentioned, imagine being told with your hands to unclog a toilet because of someone else's carelessness. So as a normal person, I wouldn't do that. After one point, I would hit the breaking point and I would just not want to do it anymore. And that's what these sanitation workers did as well. So they just gave up on it. So then what they would do is that they would collectively incinerate all the waste together, regardless of whether it is wet waste, whether it is menstrual waste. And so the amount of carcinogens that you are releasing through by actually burning menstrual waste, unprecedented, which I think which Ishita will mention the exact statistic related to that. So when we are talking, we've established what we've established what sustainable menstruation is. But now we're talking about improper disposal of menstrual waste. That doesn't just refer to throwing your pads on the roadside or flushing it down the toilet. We're also talking about the incineration of these pads, because some pads do make it to the waste segregation plant. But what then? It's being burnt, so there's no point. You might as well have thrown it on the side of the road. Same thing. So, and one site, like I mentioned, these pads over here in our locality were being burned. Through our volunteer Chandni, she paid a visit to her waste segregation plant. Same story over there. One site that really stuck with us was that of a tree that was right above the incinerator, and it was darkening. It was dying just because of because of the smoke that was being emitted, the sheer amount of smoke. So the proper, so the problem of the improper disposal of menstrual waste, when you think about it, is one that affects multiple communities, and it's like a toxic Mobius strip. It goes round and round and round. How? Well, now Ishita will get into that, and she'll really be pointing out the parallels between sustainable menstruation and the improper disposal of menstrual waste.
Okay, so now you have menstruators who are improperly disposing of their pads and tampons for whatever reason, shame, embarrassment, and you have sanitation workers forced to deal with this who, after one point, refuse to do so. And this waste coming back to really haunt menstruators again. It's a cycle, really, and it is one that we need to break out of. We've discussed the magnitude of the problem, how much plastic we're producing. A year's worth of period products was estimated by a Harvard researcher to have a carbon footprint of 5.3 kg CO2 equivalents. That is the total amount of greenhouse gases emitted. And then you have biological magnification. As this plastic makes its way up the food chain, it accumulates. And who sits on top of the food chain? We do. So, what starts to emerge here are three entities most affected by improper disposal of menstrual waste: menstruators, sanitation workers, and the environment. Now, how many of you have heard of the SDGs, also known as the Global Goals? Okay,
I think someone's raised their hand. Siad, if
Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
saying the name right.
Anyone
I'm
else?
guessing you have heard.
Yeah,
So,
you. If you want, you can just unmute and maybe explain to us what you know about the SDGs, about the global goals, or you can type it out in the chat box. That's fine. In the meantime, anyone?
okay, okay. So, for those of who you, for those of who you don't know what SDGs are, they're Sustainable Development Goals. They are a set of 17 goals put forward by the UN to achieve sustainable development by the year of 2030. And there are three SDGs in particular that are relevant to what we are discussing. And each of them implicitly address what we just mentioned. SDG 5, Clean Water and Sanitation, deals with the working conditions of sanitation workers. SDG 13 relates to climate action and pollution. SDG 12 is responsible consumption and production, which we as menstruators have to undertake. And then you realize, hey, wait, this is a problem prevalent on the global stage. This is a problem directly related to the 14 other goals, which are directly or indirectly linked to improper disposal of menstrual waste. And then you realize the weight of the problem. It is now you realize why and how sustainable menstruation is of the utmost importance. Because it not only provides a straightforward solution to the problem of improper disposal of menstrual waste, but it is also in line with the bigger picture: a better future, a sustainable future. So, in conclusion, you have the improper disposal of menstrual waste, an insidious, widespread problem affecting several communities, releasing an enormous amount of plastic into the environment. Problem tied closely to the 17 SDGs put forward by the UN, and a problem that is hindering any progress made towards a better future. And you have the solution: sustainable menstruation. Pretty simple, right? Well, not so much. That is not to say that there haven't been any attempts put, made at putting this objective into action. So yeah, in the Alapur municipality in Kerala, uh, a project called Project Thinkle was launched with the objective of encouraging the use of menstrual cups instead of non biodegradable sanitary pads. During the first phase of the program, 5,000 menstrual cups were distributed for free to female residents. An average woman uses about 156 napkins a year, while a menstrual cup can be used for 5 to 6 years. So, by doing the math, if about 5,000 women started using cups, the use of around 39 lakh pads could be avoided. Another initiative was made by the center. The center launched Jan Aushadhi Suvidha Oxo biodegradable sanitary napkins at just 2 rupees 50 paise per pad in June 2018. The product has been made available in more than 6,300 Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi Pariyojana Kendras across the country. The Suvidha pad has a special additive in it which makes it 100% biodegradable when it reacts with oxygen after it is used and then discarded. Now, this is an important step in ensuring health security for the section of Indian women who still have to use unhygienic aids during the menstrual period because of the expensiveness and the non affordability of sanitary pads in the market.
Right. So now I want you guys to answer honestly. Had any of you previously heard of either of these schemes before? Did you know what they were about or what they entailed? Anybody? Well, your silence speaks volumes, and that is why this problem is so prevalent. We have gotten into what the problem is, how it can be solved, what it can do, where all it is present. But when it comes to why sustainable menstruation is so underreported, or why the improper disposal of menstrual waste is not something that people talk about, is because menstruation is a taboo. Sanitation workers are marginalized, and we just don't want to talk about it. It really doesn't make sense. And how many of you have had a biology teacher who just skips over the chapter of reproduction? Have you ever turned a blind eye to the hierarchy, the corrosive status quo that shuts down those who are considered to be at the bottom of society? These schemes or these SDGs are all rendered useless without awareness and personal initiative. And that is where you and I come in. Ishita, could you move on to the next? Yeah, thank you. So, we at the Red Lotus, we have a dual objective. So, keeping in mind the financial constraints that some menstruators might have, and the fact that we do live in a conservative society, we encourage menstruators to use our MAP packets. MAP packets if they are unable to switch to sustainable menstrual products. So, taking note of the experiences that the sanitation workers have gone through, as Atyantika had mentioned before, we found out that the newspaper wrap pads, they would open up and they would mix in with the wet waste. So it was complete chaos. And due to not being able to sift through the mountains of waste, they would just dispose it along with other wet waste, as Atyantika mentioned again. And these would be collectively incinerated instead of being disposed of in a biomedical incinerator, which is the correct way to dispose of menstrual waste. So basically, the objective behind the MAP packets is very simple. All you have to do is put your pad into the packet, seal it, and then throw it away. They don't open, you can dispose them off in a biomedical incinerator, and they're conspicuous, which makes the lives of sanitation workers infinitely easier. Now, you might think, why did we name them Meh packets? So, Meh packets, Meh basically means me in Hindi. And the idea behind naming them Meh was to eliminate the shame that menstruation is commonly associated with. Um, Me, because I am proud of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of my menstrual cycle. So we basically distribute our packets, right? And that's how I got involved. I started out as a volunteer, and I distributed over 100 packets in my residential area where I live. I went door to door. I talked to my neighbors. I talked to the residents about how they dispose of their menstrual waste. and explain to them the dangers of not disposing it off well, correctly. And considering that we do live in a conservative society, it was not an easy task. I remember being so nervous going to these absolute strangers' house and asking them, hey, how do you dispose of your pads? You're not doing it right. It was it was extremely nerve wracking, but it was the need of the hour, and it was something that had to be done right. So, which brings me to our second objective, of course, which is to focus on awareness sessions to promote sustainable menstruation. And this isn't something that will happen overnight, obviously. We work with younger menstruators who are more open to making the shift, and we even have workshops where we sit down with them and make these packets with them. So, in this way, we are targeting menstruators all across the spectrum. We're trying to incorporate the plight of sanitation workers, the problem of improper disposal, and the ideal of sustainable menstruation all in one for a better future. And in this quest, every bit of help is essential. So, what can you do? We don't realize how consequential the most basic of endeavors can be. Something as simple as just segregating your waste as dry and wet waste, as we are supposed to, can go a long way and can ease the burden on sanitation workers. Properly disposing of your menstrual waste, again, can go a long way. So, how do you do this? You make sure that you wrap your used menstrual product properly. Make it conspicuous so that it is easier for sanitation workers to identify them and dispose them off correctly.
Use a meh packet. Just use a meh packet.
The best solution, of course, is to try and switch to eco friendly alternatives, such as pads, organic tampons, menstrual cups, cloth pads, and so on. Whatever you feel that you are comfortable with. Now, can you guys tell me something about the sustainable period products that you know? I've just mentioned some, so if you know anything about them, you can tell us. Okay, discs, yes. That's great. That's great that you guys are informed about sustainable period products because I'll be telling you some advantages about them. So, organic tampons and cloth pads, they are comfortable and they are user friendly. Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. Organic tampons and cloth pads, they are comfortable and they're reusable and they require basic care and sanitization. And of course, they're environment friendly, as you have mentioned. Um, and it goes without saying that they're good for the environment as you generate minimal waste. But is being eco-friendly the only advantage of organic pads and tampons? Absolutely not, right? Gynecologists recommend the use of organic pads, tampons, as regular sanitary pads have a lot of plastic content. As we've mentioned multiple times before, they're 90% plastic, and this can cause skin irritation and allergic reactions. While organic pads, they are made out of 100% organic cotton, and they let your skin breathe. So now we have menstrual cups. You guys mentioned menstrual cups. They are an absolute blessing. It's a one time investment without any drawbacks, and they can be used for about 5 to 10 years. So you'll not only be doing the environment a favor, you'll be doing your pocket a favor too. So these were a few things that menstruators can do to help the cause, right? We realize that not everyone here might be a menstruator, and even then, just doing your best to alleviate the stigma that still in the 21st century shrouds menstruation can go such a long way. I'll tell you guys one of my experiences that I had with someone who's not a menstruator. So I had one of my brother's friends reach out to me asking. He told me that I was doing such a great thing that it was really great to see me because he's known me since I was a kid, and it was really great to see me doing things like this. And he wanted to know how he could help the cause that the Red Lotus stands for. So that really shows that not even if you aren't a menstruator, you can do so much to just help the cause and just make the world a better place for everyone. And it was so heartwarming to see someone reach out to us like that and be open to having a conversation about the same because it isn't very common, unfortunately. So I think we just talking about it just goes such a long way. So Finally, even spreading awareness and just talking about menstruation openly is a progressive step that we can all take. There is nothing that we have to be ashamed about. We need to embrace it and talk about it. Right. So, if you guys have any questions at all or any experiences that you'd like to share with us, we are open to listening or answering. You guys can say it or you can just put it in the chat box, whatever is fine.
Yeah, guys. Anything, any questions? I think even if you have any queries about the Red Lotus project, you can. Yeah.
How can you? Oh, that's a good question. Can I do you guys mind if I pick that one up?
Yeah, you can.
Go for it.
Right. So the map packets in particular, what we are looking at right now is what we do now is that I can give you the packets myself. We have a producer actually who makes the packets for us. We make it all together. We actually, our main concept, which we didn't mention, is that we make these packets with the sanitation workers themselves, because we thought it would be a pretty neat idea to get those who are actually involved by the who are actually affected by the problem the most involved in the initiative, right? Because it's their experiences that we want to highlight and put forward. And that started off great. We still, every weekend, a few sanitation workers come over to my place. We make the packets together. We hold a ton of workshops. So that's how we collect our pads. But now we have a producer who makes them for us as well. So if it comes down to you actually wanting these map packets for use, you can let us know and we can actually come and drop them off for you. We can courier them. That's what we do for our volunteers. We have one in Gujarat, one in Vizag. So we actually courier the packets to them, and we can definitely do that again. Or we can just come and drop them off. And mm,
As for the cost, it depends from brand to brand. It can go from 300 to 700. It's up to you. And there are different sizes for there are many different sizes that you have to look for yourself, because see, each person do their own. There are
yeah,
sizes available.
yeah, and just to add on to that, when I started out, it's mostly recommended. Mostly, if most brands have a small or a large, or they some have medium as well. So you might want to look into that. Small is basically for beginners who are not sexually active, whose hymen is still intact. That one's, of course, as the name suggests, smaller. But then medium and large differs. You have to really look into the preferences for each company, because if you've given birth to a child, then you might want to use large, but it's mostly small, medium, and large. So you can look into that. And as Ishita mentioned, they mentioned the price differs that.
Yeah, and for the next question, one mare packet costs around 1 rupee.
Anything else? You can also tell us any experiences that you've had, anything that you'd like to tell us. Since we've told you some stories, you can tell us some too.
Did you
One great
guys, yeah, I was gonna ask, did you meet with any stigma around talking about periods? Because it's like something that boys shouldn't hear, or around that. Did you, when you started out on the project, go through something like that?
Absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, just even to like menstruators, talking about menstruation to menstruators itself was just so nerve-wracking to me. And it's so weird. It just doesn't make sense because that is something so natural and something that you both go through. So, what is the shame in talking about it? So, absolutely, we did like face some stigma going about this. So, Atyantika, Rishita, if you guys want to.
Yeah, so during I did a distribution drive in Thane, Mumbai. That time I went to, not elderly, I would say she was 40s, 50s, and I went to her and was like, hi, and she knew me. So we talked about it, and it's like, this is actually a project, and I want to talk to you about this. And the weirdest thing happened. Now, it might sound outlandish, but the woman just shut the door, like, in my face, and I was like, at least she didn't shout at me. I guess that's progress. So
Yeah, but we've Shred, Ishita, do you have anything else to say?
no, I was just gonna say it was a pretty bad thing that happened, but the next person who I went to directly after, they were super enthusiastic about it. So that's scary.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to mention. For every one person that we meet who is not as excited about what we're doing, we meet five other people who are genuinely interested. And I think that's such a great step in the right direction. For example, when Ishita and I, we were doing, I think the second or third try, we just started out. And we were going around distributing these packets. There was this one woman, and her son had to be at most in like the seventh or eighth grade. He was definitely not older than that. He was like, I want my son to volunteer with you guys. He has two sisters. He knows what menstruation is. I menstruate. And I want him to be a conscious citizen who is aware about the challenges his sisters go through, as you mentioned, sanitation workers go through. And I think that's such a neat thing to say and to involve your children at such a young age. Because he's not, I mean, what are the chances that he you, I that he would take a genuine interest on when it comes to sustainable menstruation on its own. But the fact that this lady was so, she first of all she brought like 200 packets, which in itself was great for us. But then she was trying to get her children involved, and I think that's the best way to go about it. Because Shreya brought up the topic about how many of you have had teachers who just skip over the chapter on reproduction. That happens a lot at our school. But but if you don't talk about it, you're going to get nowhere. Then the Red Lotus Project, goons, big NGOs, they're rendered absolute, the SDGs rendered absolutely useless. That is one amazing experience that I remember in particular. And Nishita and I, we just sort of looked at each other. What do we say? Of course, definitely. That was great. Yeah.
We have another question in the comment box.
What are our future plans, thinking about other sustainable menstrual products as well? Can I answer this? And then when it comes to future plans, I think Ishita can do a fantastic job because she had this idea of a whole line of sustainable period products. But right now, see we have a lot of period poverty in our country as well. There are a lot there. This is the section of society that we're talking about who has access to menstrual products. There is a very large section of society who doesn't have that as well. So what we are aiming for is to at first cater to this section of society that does have access to period products. You may, through our map packs, instill a sense of caution in this section of society, that wait, the product I might be using is unsustainable, let me make the shift. Through our map packs, we've named them meh as a sort of symbolic reference to that, that you should be a little more conscious. What we are ultimately aiming for is the cannibalization of our packets themselves. We don't want to be in a situation where we have to make use of products such as map packets. That's a less than ideal situation. In a perfect world, in a utopian world, we would be at that point in time where everybody is using a menstrual cup, where everybody is using cloth pads, right? That is the the place we want to reach. That is our future plan. We don't know how it will happen, we don't know when it will happen. And then going on to, the cannibalization of the map packets themselves, that is what we ultimately aim for. We don't want to have the objective of having to convince people to use a packet to dispose of their pads. That is not the penultimate goal or the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is that people turn us away, that, oh, I don't even need your map packets because I use a menstrual cup. That is the final aim. But of course, that is, it might be a vision. So it might be a pipe dream. So our immediate future plans, Ishita, maybe you want to explain that?
Yep. So right now we want to work more on awareness. We've done enough groundwork, like Mushti said, during our online off time. Like when we didn't have any webinars. So now we want to talk with younger menstruators. Really get it. Get convey our idea to them that this is actually a problem. You need to look for a solution. And then we can have a few more drives. And personally, I would like the Red Lotus to have its own line of sustainable menstrual products, but the girl can dream.
Right. And I think the next question was, what were your parents' reactions when you talked about this idea that you all had? Shreya, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So since Atyantika, Ishita, Manasvi, and I were all in the same school and we're all in the same grade, when they started out, even though I wasn't a part of the team, I was closely following them. And I really wanted to be a part of it, but I had a lot going on, so I couldn't. And I remember still telling my mom about all of this, and she was really skeptical. She kept on saying, "Why do you want to do? Is it really that big of a problem? Do you have to like do so much for this?" And after a while, after a while, since Red Lotus started out, I started seeing the impact that they were making. And I remember like when their first article came out in Malayalam Manorama, I think. Yeah. I read that with my mom, and we really had a conversation about like what the Red Lotus stands for. I think that is when my mother was convinced that, hey, this is something that is, a very important topic that needs to be talked about. So that's how I got into Red Lotus. So there was a little bit of um, my mom wasn't really all in for the idea at first, but eventually, with a lot of conversation, we got to a point that even she was very supportive of me. So that is why we keep saying communication is so important. We need to talk about it. That is only when we get to a point that we can, come up with solutions for the problem that we are facing. Yeah.
Right, and then there's a fantastic, I think, by Dr. Isaac. I belong to a generation Y, and as you mentioned, that we've come such a long way. We should not discredit that. Now we are at a point, but now we are at a crossroads where we can really make or break this. We are starting to see the effects. Um, that we are starting to see the repercussions of our actions. Climate change is all around us now. You can now it's actually tangible. You can see the ocean rise, you can see islands go under, and in a sense, it's hard to connect that to sustainable menstruation at first glance. But what Ishita pointed out about it being connected to 14 other sustainable development goals, because you cannot hope to achieve one sustainable goal without achieving the others right before it or right after it. You can't you and so it's hopeless to even think that you will achieve sustainable all 17 sustainable goals if you don't achieve one on climate change, responsible consumption and production. But still, as Dr. Isaac mentioned, we've come such a long way. Now we can at least start a conversation on this. I think what Shreya mentioned about her brother's friend who actually said that I want to help you out. You couldn't have imagined that 50 years ago, 40 years ago. That itself is lots of progress, but we have a long way to go. Long, long way.
We have Canval and Amalda's few experiences in Canval's
Yeah,
best friend. So
yeah, I was
guess
just
you.
reading Hilda's.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that during our entire reproduction chapter, we had us in the eighth grade, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Our teacher got by the entire chapter without mentioning the word vagina or sex or any, and that was quite a feat, I think, in my opinion, that you can get by the entire chapter. So just study for it on your own. And you were in a girls only school, so I can only imagine. Our school is still co-ed. I don't think it should make a difference. And I think overall it sort of hinders your development as well, because what you learn in school to a certain extent is what you carry for the rest of your lives. If at school only you're taught that, oh, you shouldn't you shouldn't be talking about reproduction or reproductive organs. First of all, that in itself instills a sense of shame. Second of all, people are not able to spot any potential dangers down the line. We actually held a session on PCOS and PCOD. We spoke to a girl named Ava Khan, who's actually a student at the University of Sydney. She has her own initiative, and she actually has PCOS. And one thing that she mentioned that stuck with me is that in schools, when we don't educate menstruators about PCOS, PCOD, such hormonal disorders, by the time they diagnose themselves, they go to a doctor, they spot the symptoms, it's too late. And you can't have any children. The weight problems set in, and then it's something that stays with you for life. But if you properly educate students on what PCOS is, or on reproductive organs, what reproductive organs are, what's healthy, what's not healthy, it has very it besides sustainable menstruation, there are also health problems that you should be aware about, and that should start at the elementary level. So it's amusing, but it's also really saddening once you think about it.
There's
I mean,
another.
after school, you always have college to get to know more. I think that has been the fact for a lot of our students, like from MA itself. Ishita, you're going to say something.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, it says here that family support and support from friends also matters a lot. And I was gonna say, yeah, it does, because you learn about these things first at your house, and who do you, if you have a problem, who do you go to discuss it with? Your friends. And when they shun you from this topic, or they refuse to talk about it, it obviously goes to your head like, there must be something wrong with this topic, and that is why people refuse to talk about it. So yeah, and I too do hope that no one else would have to face such problems in the future.
Exactly. Yeah. So, any other questions, any other stories? If not, I think,
Yeah, we are
yeah, yeah, we're
few
close
minutes
to,
above, but yeah. If
yeah.
anyone has anything more, I think we can go. Diana ma'am, is that okay?
Yeah, if there is no further questions, we can wind up.
Right.
Last call for any experiences anyone wants to share. You can just on
I
your
just
mic.
want to tell my experience for fun. So, I recently had my cousins at home, like maybe a month or two back. And so they are like small kids, okay? Like two of them didn't have menstruation yet. And like one of my cousins, although she's quite young, her menstruation started. And like one of my cousins, she was very excited. She's like, Chichi, do you know what is menstruation? I've heard it, like, some mysterious thing. And then what happens is that, for me, I'm very open about it, okay? I don't see the reason why, I mean, half of the world is women, okay? We should be allowed to be like, have no sense of shame around it. But anyways, and she was so excited. So I was like, yeah, sure, I will tell you all about it, darling. You came to the right person, okay? I was so excitedly telling this to her. And now my other cousin, okay, she was like, her expression was like, oh, you're really talking about this right here? I mean, are you seriously kidding me? This is so embarrassing. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, girl, you're gonna live the rest of your life like this. Just embrace it. And yeah, and you should have seen, I mean, my younger cousins were so damn excited. They were like, oh, really? I was like, wow, this is a good change. Yeah, so that's just it.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much. For that, I think that's something we've all gone through. I would like to thank the Red Lotus so much for being here. Can I call up Diana ma'am to give a few remarks?
Yes, yes, thank you. Thank you, Hrutia. Good evening, young ladies, Miss Ishita, Miss Atyantika, Miss Rhea, and I think Miss Manaswi, she has also joined in between. My dear faculty, friends, colleagues, and my dear students of Gender Sensitization Club. Once upon a time, it was thought that in order to change the world, you need to do very big things, like an invention like an atomic bomb, or a development like a nuclear reactor. You need to do something big to change the world. But now the thoughts are changing. Now, even the modern thoughts say that even the smallest things can make a big impact. You call it as a butterfly effect. Even when a butterfly flaps its wings, it can create a big ripples across the world. So here we have a bunch of young girls, and they are doing something small but in a bold way. They have started something in a small way, but they are doing it in a bold way, which is going to address a larger issue and which is going to make a big impact in days to come. And if you are looking from the perspectives of the environmental rights going on, the fight for environmental rights going on across the world, you can see that there was one Greta Thunberg who started a lone fight for climate change, almost your age. And also we have Malala, also a young girl who could make a significant change in the female empowerment. And I look upon the three young girls, the three of you, to come up to that range. You have got the willpower, you have got the determination, you have got the courage, which is more than your age. So I'm very sure that in the days to come, you will also evolve into such influential figures. And we at the Gender Sensitization Club of Mar Athanasius College, Kodamangalam, would like to extend our wholehearted support to the Red Lotus Project. And we would like to take forward this association in a meaningful way further in the days to come. And also, I would like to conclude with one remark made by the former US President Barack Obama, who once said that we are, as Atyantika has been mentioning right now, we are the first generation who are seeing tangible effects of climate change. And we are the last generation who could do something about it. So it is the right time. And if we don't do it now, it is there will not be a time for us to act upon. So you are in the right track, and we are all with you, and we are looking forward to more associations with you. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much, Diana ma'am. Um, I think the Red Lotus also, Diana ma'am was the one who brought forth the newspaper article and brought in this butterfly effect where we are here right now. Hopefully, I'm very sure your issue has been a big. I think almost all the attendees have definitely understood how much grave of a situation it is. You have comments rolling on, and I'm pretty sure you will have more followers and a few volunteers from our college itself. I think we can, in the future, as ma'am said, we can bring this association to more meaningful means as offline classes and all reopen. Thank you so much, guys. Can I invite Anam? Before that, I also want to mention I was talking about the stigma around it, and I just wanted to mention Canwell and Siad Umar, who were such active participants, who they've passed that boundary where boys will not talk about menstruation. They've openly talked about so many things. So I just had to mention the two of them. I would like to welcome Anam next for the official vote of thanks. Anam?
Hello, am I
Yeah,
audible?
yeah. Yes, yes, you are.
Okay. Good evening to all present here. I take this opportunity to thank the great initiative of Red Lotus organization for spreading awareness on sustainable menstruation. I would like to extend my gratitude to Diana ma'am for bringing Lotus to our attention and also for coordinating this wonderful session. I would like to thank Miss Atyantika, Miss Ishida, Miss Shreya for initiating this great session and also giving all the relevant information on the plastic among us through a great game and also by interacting the whole session. I hope all the attendees are now very much aware of it. Uh, as Diana ma'am told, small steps initiate to big changes. So I hope this small step will definitely be a big change to all of us. And I would also like to express my gratitude on behalf of the Gender Sensitization Cell of Mar Athanasius College Autonomous for providing an opportunity to these young, vibrant girls of Lotus organization to host this awesome webinar. I also thank all the participants for their active participation throughout the group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anam. Thank you guys for joining once again. I think I've said thank you like 10 times by now, but still, it was really cool having you. Your presentation was also really nice. I'm pretty sure it's going to be talked about. I also, when you were talking about the incinerator, ma'am, I was thinking about how our college has an incinerator, right? In the women's washroom, we have one which is used for disposal. So I'm also a little bit proud that MA College has taken a step towards that. Very glad to have you guys here. Do you want anything else to conclude or anything else to say?
No, just to reiterate what you said 10 times, I will now say thank you so much for having us. It's been an absolute pleasure. This was a fantastic session. I think I've learned a lot from you guys, and I think I speak on behalf of the entire Red Lotus project when we say that this has to be one of the most interactive sessions, one where we've not only given you a bit of our knowledge, but we've also taken away some that we had no idea of. And thank you, Hridya, for being very patient with me, because I really started nagging you in the middle. It's like I want this session to happen, because really, and Diana, ma'am, who mentioned such wonderful points. You spoke about Malala Yousafzai, you spoke about Greta Thunberg. And those are fantastic examples. Mahatma Gandhi ji put it best: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." We are small, but we do hope to make a tangible impact. And thank you so much for you guys gave us a platform to do that, and it's been great. Thank you for having us, and just a fantastic session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That would wind us today's session around. Thank you everyone for joining us. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And we will be in touch with you definitely for further volunteering activities. We will be in touch with you, Red Lotus.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, I speak for everyone when I say that would be amazing. We would definitely love to be more involved as part of the college, as part of the gender sensitization club. Um, that
And
would be
all the best wishes for your studies, for your project. And you can also call upon us for anything you require from college side, any further promotion, you can feel free to contact us.
Oh, we'll definitely do that. And good luck for everyone who have their exams tomorrow. Thank you
Yeah.
for joining in any case.
Okay.
Yeah. Where are you guys from? I wanted to ask that since you are in Kochi right now, right? You're studying in Kochi right now.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
in Kochi.
Yeah.
But you guys are not from Kerala. I'm just.
I am from Kerala. I'm a
Oh,
Malayali.
Shreya,
okay.
yeah.
I'm from Mumbai, Maharashtra.
Okay. And I,
What about Atlantica and Manasvi?
Atlantica?
Well, my situation is slightly complicated. My mother is Malayali, half Malayali, half Telugu, but my father is from Bengal.
Okay, Mukherjee, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm born and brought up here, but I'm Gujarati.
Okay,
Oh,
Manasvi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us here. I'm sorry I was late. I had my
Yeah.
classes going on.
Okay, okay.
We can understand the exam situation. It's everywhere. As students.
Very. Pressure is something else.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. So let's keep in touch. As ma'am said, let's find future associations again. So that's it now.
Absolutely.
Shall we wind up?
We will wind up, Hridya. Thank you, Hridya.
Thank
Thank you for having
Yeah.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much.
Good night.
Bye.